Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Alison Carter is a life coach helping people who are going through changes. When she used to work in the corporate sector, she found networking to be a bit of a chore. But now she works for herself, she finds it inspiring and energising. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Alison.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks very much, Liz.
Now, you now work in the coaching space, but I know that you've come from a retail background. So tell me something about your years at Selfridges and John Lewis and the like.
Oh, yes, no, thank you. I've had a fabulous career today. I've spent 3 decades in retail, which for somebody who did a geography degree was quite a surprise. I did many years in fashion buying, so I was really lucky to join the Selfridges graduate programme. And at that time you became an assistant buyer manager. So effectively it was like you'd have your own department and you would manage and buy for that department. So I had my first department that I sort of ran like that was actually ladies' hats. And it was at the time when Princess Diana was very much in the media, always looking wonderfully dressed, and she wore hats. So she was great for business.
Yes.
and it was a really, really fabulous time to join that industry. But what was wonderful about the Selfridges programme at the time was you kind of learnt how to be an all-round trader, because you managed your team, you managed your stocks, you bought your stocks, you saw the whole sort of annual cycle of retail. So, and of course it was on Oxford Street, and it was where, Selfridges was all about theatre, still is. So it was just an amazing start to my career. So I had 7 very happy years there, and then all in fashion buying. And then I moved to John Lewis because I really wanted to learn more about buying for multiple department stores. At the time, Selfridges just had the one store. And so moved to John Lewis, which culturally was very, very different. Because obviously being the partnership model.
Yes.
So it's very much a collegiate way of working and a business ethos that really resonated for me. And so I absolutely loved working at John Lewis. And I was there for over 20 years, and the bulk of that time in fashion buying as well, in various different areas of women's wear and children's wear. But then my last 10 years there, I had a real sort of switch. John Lewis is a great employer for supporting sort of changes in direction, and I headed up their creative studio. So very much with them working in the online retail space, and working with fabulous creative teams of photographers, teams, in production and post-production. So I really, had an amazing time at John Lewis. But unfortunately that came to an end a couple of years ago as a result of some head office restructuring. My role was made redundant. So I stepped away just over 2 years ago, and it was a very interesting time because in the sort of 18 months before that, we had been all of us in the global pandemic. So we had this shift from everyone going to the office, or to the studio in my case, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, to then us remote working, and it's all in this world of quite sort of scary what's going on, not knowing what's happening globally, to working from home. And then, sadly, my role being made redundant sort of 18 months into that. So it was a very strange time. But it also afforded me the opportunity to step back and to see, actually, well, what about the next stage? I'm very much was at midlife. And so rather than rushing into another corporate job, another retail job, I decided to sort of, let's just step back and see, where do I want to go? And I'm a very keen cyclist. I'm not a fast cyclist, but I'm a keen cyclist. So the first thing I did was I did a I did a 5-week cycle tour of the UK. Because one of the things that had come about through the pandemic, I don't know if it was the same for you, is you have all these friends that you say, oh, we must catch up,
Yes,
through
yes.
Facebook or whatever. And the years roll by and you don't.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, I'm actually going to do it, because the pandemic really made me think, well, we need to catch up with people when we get the opportunity to, or make those opportunities. So I created a cycle tour around the UK based on where these friends
Oh,
live.
fantastic.
So I cycled, it was over 5 weeks,
Yeah.
and I cycled 1,500 miles around the UK.
Wow.
Yeah, and I met up with 20 friends, and it was so connecting, particularly after having gone through the pandemic and us losing each other,
Yeah.
to then make those connections again. And some of those friends I met, I hadn't seen for 30 years.
Yeah.
And it was so life affirming, and to connect again. And it's interesting. I know we're talking about, your podcasts around networks and business networks, but there's all the other networks we have in our lives as well. And there's all these friendship networks that I rekindled. And as a result of some of that, I've had some meetups with some friends, which has just been wonderful. So that was how I started, the change of my life. And it was really, I felt very fortunate that I could take the opportunity to step back and say, well, let's see where life's going to take me now, what direction I'm going to go in. So that was sort of the background I had before I had the career change.
Yeah. And so what was it that made you decide to look into coaching as a possibility?
Well, I wanted, one of the things that was really, well, there were a few things that were important to me in terms of this change, was I realised I wanted flexibility in my life. I wanted variety, and I wanted to do something different. I'd always really enjoyed working with people throughout my career, and so I wanted something that was people focused. And I had, was 6 years ago now, coming out 7 years ago, I had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I had gone through treatment, and fortunately, I'm still here and I'm very healthy. And thank goodness to the NHS for that.
Yes.
But it was also another thing that was very much on my mind, was, much as I'd enjoyed my career in retail, I wanted to find something that made more of a difference on a very personal level. Because through my cancer experience and working with charities who are amazing, I had been very touched and supported by other people. And I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for that support I had had. So they kind of all came together, and I thought, well, do you know what? Coaching feels like a way in which I can help people. It gives me a real sense of purpose, but also affords me flexibility, because one of the great things about the pandemic was we all realised we could work from home. So what it means is work I can do flexibly in terms of where I work, but also in terms of hours, and how many days a week I wish to work. Because one of the things I now I don't have the energy levels I used to have because of the treatment and the medication I'm on. So I don't really want to do full-time work. So doing something like coaching, where I'm freelance, I'm doing it off my own back, meant I could do that. I was also encouraged to retrain by the John Lewis have a very good severance package, and as part of that, there was a retraining fund. So it was kind of like, well, it would be foolish of me to not retrain.
No-brainer.
Exactly. So as often happens in life, I think I stepped into coaching not having half an idea what it was, and then it was only once I was in it I realised really what it was, and actually how amazing it is, but also how broad it is and how many different sorts of coaching realms there are. So there were multiple reasons why I chose that decision to coach, become a coach.
And so what kind of training did you go through?
So I coached as I'm certified life coach and a master NLP practitioner, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So I worked with a boutique coach training provider, and there's a lot of self-learning, so a lot of reading, a lot of watching videos, studying. So that was great. Actually, going back to learning was wonderful. I remember when I left university, I was like, that's it, I'm done with studying.
Yeah.
But actually, it's wonderful to learn and to grow again. It's just fantastic. So there was a mixture of that, but then also online learning in a informal classroom setting, and then lots of group work too, and lots of group practice, and through doing that I've made some really wonderful contacts as well in the coaching world. You do that over the course of about a year. It took me to get my diploma, and then working towards accreditation with the International Coaching Federation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the training that I've done.
Yeah. So who is it that you now help, and how do you help them?
So I help both men and women. I help people who are in midlife, and people who are. It's a lot of coaching is about change, and what I've seen is there's through personal experience, but also through the people I'm working with, there are two kinds of change. There are changes that we choose to make, and there are changes that kind of get thrown upon us that we maybe aren't changes that we want to happen. Sometimes one can lead to the other, which is I think where a lot of my clients come from. So I work with a lot of people who have also experienced cancer, and often I think coaching is really useful a while after you've had cancer and you've sort of processed what you've been through and you've dusted yourself off after the treatment, and then you start to have those, okay, now where do I go in life? I also work with people who have maybe been through a relationship breakup or through a divorce or through bereavement in their lives. So again, they've had a loss, they've had a change in their circumstance. People also who've had job losses as well, and it's paused them to reflect and think, well, actually, where do I go? What do I want to do now? But it can be, change is daunting and it's overwhelming. So I then work with them to help them work through, okay, what choices have you got? Because I think often in life we think we don't have choice. We can get into a bit of a victim mentality.
Yeah.
But actually, do you know what? We've all got choices.
Yeah.
I mean, that can sound terribly privileged, because I know not everyone does have, but actually our mindset can often be the thing that actually limits us in terms of the choices. So I talk about daring to dream, and working with clients to really, with because it's amazing the answers we have in us, but sometimes we just need someone to help us unlock those, and the dreams and the thoughts and the wild imaginings, that we never thought we had. Because I think corporate life can knock a lot of that out of us. Day-to-day life can knock a lot of that out of us. So, with my clients, it's holding that space to just dare and dream and imagine a different life, imagine different directions. And then actually, well, what direction do they want to take in life? What choices are available to them? And exploring that, and also exploring how they can make those changes, what resources they have, what's available to them. It's really the people I work with are people generally who are in midlife and are saying, well, what about the rest of my life? What opportunities are out there? And what decisions, therefore, do I want to make? And it's very much, I take a holistic approach. So sometimes people will come to me because they want to make a career change, and that's usually the case. Actually, they do want to change the career in a way. But we always end up looking at their whole life, because it's about the balance we have in our lives, but also what values do we have. And I think often when we get to midlife, we say, am I leading a life that's true to me, that's true to my values? And often the starting place for that can actually be, I don't think I'm in the right job. I don't think this is the right career for me. Do I take that opportunity to make those changes now? So that's the sort of the work that I do with the people that I work with, and it's very much, it's just as much, if not more work for them than it is for me, because there's a lot of internal work that we have to do with this. And to get the good results, sometimes, we have to ask ourselves some tough questions. That's the people that I work with.
Now, I know something that you're quite keen on is blue-green therapy. So can you explain what that is and how that works?
So part of what I do is I do walking, talking sessions. So with some other people that I work with, I'm fortunate where I live in North London. I'm very near to lots of amazing green spaces, Hampstead Heath being the main one that people will probably know. And there's something about being in blue-green spaces, which is about being near water, being in the green of nature, that shifts our brain. And we think differently, and there have been neurological studies and there's an increasing body of evidence around this that shows this, so I find the quality of the conversation is different when we're out and about, talking and walking. There's something about the action of walking, being physically active rather than sitting down as well, that our brain works differently. And then I think the third element for me about it is actually when you walk side by side, the quality of the quality of conversation is different to when you are face to face talking to someone. Eye contact, body language is hugely important, particularly neuro-linguistic programming. But actually, there's something about when you're walking side by side with someone, it's a different quality of conversation. It's almost like, you think about when you're in a car as well. Sometimes when you're in a car, passenger and driver, you can have a really different conversation than you would if you were sitting opposite each other having lunch. So it just shift of environment. I think changes the way changes the way our brains think, changes the quality of the thinking, and the quality of the conversation, and then just about, there's something as well about being outside and being grounded, feeling, we may not be barefoot, but we can feel the ground under our feet. There are different textures of whether, we're on nice soft grass or, we're walking over something harder than that. And it's just having, the sounds of nature around us as well, whether that be the walk, whether that be water or bird song. It's relaxing as well, it triggers our vagus nerve, so we're then in that more relaxed state. So I find those conversations incredibly powerful and energising when we do that sort of that blue-green therapy, that walking and talking.
Well, something I tried recently was net walking. Let's get on to the networking part of things now. Is that something that you've done? Any net walking?
It's on my list. It's because I'm aware of net walks going on, which I just think is a fabulous idea.
It is.
So this is network meetups, isn't it? Where actually you walk and talk, and sometimes coffee's involved as well. So I don't know. I heard about them through the small business enterprise, and I just think it's an amazing idea. So I'm definitely up for going on one when the opportunity arises.
I can highly recommend it. And like you say, you do have very different conversations. And the net walk that I went to, you could take dogs, and that was brilliant because that's such an icebreaker. People always come and talk to your dog before they talk to you.
Do you know what? That's so true. And that sounds amazing. And there's a chap, I can't remember his name now, but he's got an Instagram following, and he set up dog walks for men. So very much to encourage men to talk to each other. And he got sort of BBC coverage and things because it was such a fabulous idea. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's very much that idea of just, blokes meet up with their dogs and end up having great conversations. And like you say, it's such an icebreaker, isn't it? When people have got a dog with them.
So is networking something that you did when you used to be employed in the retail sector?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that I've come to really realise the importance of now that I'm running my own business. But it's different. So in the corporate sector, it's almost something that's on your the corporates have, their annual appraisal cycles. They generally have sets of values that employees are asked to work to, and also sets of competencies. And often within that, you'll, particularly as a leader, sort of stakeholder management and networking, communication skills, all of that will be part of the competencies. So it's seen as, I guess I felt of it as being a little bit something that I had to do rather than I would necessarily enjoy doing. And certainly in that environment, you know that you need to have the right networks to get decisions made, to get your budgets signed off, to get approval to your projects. You've got to make sure you know the right people, but also understand the process in terms of those sorts of stakeholder chains and the corporate structure. That's the word I'm looking for, the corporate structure, to get things done. And it would feel like rather annoying if you didn't have those right contacts, because you would know actually you had the right business idea or whatever, but you just didn't have the right business contacts within the corporate structure to get those things signed off, or to get the right visibility at the right exec team meeting. So I guess I came away with seeing networking in probably a slightly negative light, actually, as being something that was in that sort of more sort of corporate toxic.
Yeah, a bit of a chore, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And feeling like something you had to invest in your time and energy in, when actually you felt like, well, surely if I'm doing my job, I shouldn't have to do that stuff. So, so then coming out and now really seeing the amazing positive value of networking when you're a small business owner, when you're a freelancer. I think what I've really come to appreciate, many things actually with networking, is, it's completely invaluable. You can't set up a business without them. And what I found wonderful is, we're not in a sort of a political, ego-driven sphere that you can find in some corporations. Generally, I've just found people are so supportive.
Yeah.
People want to help because, we're all small business owners. We've all been here. We've all seen each other's, and we all want to. And I've been blown away by the contacts people have given me, how people have wanted to help me out. People want to share resources. They want to make referrals. It's not competitive in the same way, and it's incredibly refreshing, but also vital. So things like finding an accountant, knowing actually, oh my God, terms and conditions, privacy policies, all that legal side. How do I do my business planning? How do I get clients? Also, how do I stay motivated? Because one of the hard things with all of this is staying motivated, and the feelings of isolation. So then those networks, those communities you can be part of. And I find all of those incredibly energizing and incredibly positive. So I've gone from, seeing networking as being a bit of a dirty word to actually seeing it's amazing. So it's been a revelation for me, actually, and something that I feel it really energizes me as well. And when I see other people, I get so inspired, So, I've met people that are doing in a completely different business sphere. So, I've met a wonderful ceramicist. I've met another business owner who makes wonderful jewellery from coffee pods. And it's just, these things are so inspiring. But you share your struggles, you share your triumphs, and you share your connections. And I love that. I just love it.
Brilliant. So just finally then, Alison, if people want to find you, what is the best place for them to contact you?
So I'm on LinkedIn as Alison Carter. I've also, my website is Alison Carter Coaching. You can find me there as well.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for sharing your networking story and being so enthusiastic about it, which is wonderful.
Great. Well, it's been great to speak to you. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.